Just a second. Okay. Give me a second. A second. Live. Peace. See if I can. Give me a second, y'all. I've got some working on my issues with the service. Give me a second. Peace to anybody watching. Give me a second. I should run this real fast. Let me do that. All right. Get that out the way. See if I can get my video playing. Let me see. All right. Damn, it didn't go. Well, this one.
Yeah, we clogging up the pipeline. Word on the Yeah, we clogging up the pipeline. Word on the streets, they miss me since I put the mic down. Since I put the mic down. They say they miss me, nigga, since I put the mic down. Since I put the mic down. They say they miss me, nigga, since I put the mic down. Since I put the mic down. They say they miss me, nigga, since I put the mic down.
Well, forget it. I'm just gonna. I'm just gonna get to the nitty gritty, man. You know what I'm saying? See what that's looking like. Yeah. It's gonna bring it up. Or what? All right. Then I'm gonna go slide back over to that and operate that real fast. Hopefully we don't have no issues. Make sure it can be heard.
What's the deal,
Yeah.
brother Travis? If you ain't already got your copy of Volume 5, this is your reminder first and foremost, especially if you're interested in this Acres Home information I have on the survey. And I plan on making a publication on Houston's history in general, as far as all the different areas, historical African American enclaves and whatnot, from Fifth Ward to the Fourth Ward to uh, every from Independence High School, which I know is Studewood, to Third Ward. I'm gonna do my best to touch on all of it. But this survey is just a sample of the Acres Home information that I've collected and put in writing documentation. So before we start this presentation, you don't got this book yet. If anything, put it on your wish list or so to support. I'm gonna begin part two of this series with a documentary that will somewhat gloss over what I had.
Excuse the signal, man. It's gonna play. I'll just go to the next one.
Already covered, and also going to
I'll just go to the next one.
be detailed on other things.
Start the video. Come on. There we go. Give me a second, man. Come on.
Something positive, because I was proud to be able to ride on that bus.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was watching this earlier. Started where it supposed to be started.
Baby, it's not that hard. If you know your history, then you can make better choices in life.
Acres Homes, an African American community located just 10 miles north of downtown Houston, was established during the First World War in the early 1900s. Many still debate about the name of the community. Some refer to it as Acreage Homes, Acres Homes, Acres Homes, the Fofo. However, when Wright first platted the community, he named it Acre Homes.
And the reason why they called it Acres Home, you know that, right? The reason why it was called Acres Home because you could buy lots by acres, and which was quite different from the way they were selling lots in other places, and it was pretty big acres.
Alfred A. Wright platted it into two subdivisions, the Highland Acre Homes Edition in 1910 and the Highland Heights Edition in 1913.
I've been here ever since I come out here at 18 years old. When we had dirt roads, streets, dirt roads and streets, we built up from me and my mother built the house from the ground up. A little 4-room house.
My first place, 3-bedroom. I'm a 2-bedroom. I'm sorry about that. 2-bedroom. They call it then. There's little shotgun. In fact, the business is down on River Forest now.
We moved here. My mother moved here when I was 15. Got a chance of graduating from a accredited high school. And I graduated from Booker T. Washington High School, which was then located downtown, just a few blocks from City Hall.
Alfred A. Wright, the developer, owned Wright Land and Security for his white clients and Wright Land Company for his black clients. You could purchase an acre of land for $120 with a $5 down payment and $5 monthly mortgage.
The land was cheap. And I remember that my mother paid $10 down and $10 a month on buying property.
This gave the working class black person a chance to own land. The cheap land, low taxes, the easy, slow-paced life, and wide open spaces attracted black families to the community. The area, once dairy land owned by the Jews in the early 1800s, was occupied by blacks and dairy farms all the way down to Spring, Texas. Most of the blacks worked on the dairy farms for the Jews, and it has been said that the Jews made sure that those men and women were well taken care of when it came time for them to sell their land and leave the area. The history is rich, and so is the spirit of the people. This is the untold story of Acres Homes 100 years later. The community will be built on a strong faith in God, education, unity, and self-reliability.
You know, the church and the school was the thrive of the community. It was the thrust of the community. And everything was done was centered around the churches or the schools, but there was such a unity. You know, a lot of racism, you saw it and you heard about it when you left out Acres Home.
You know, we used to have grocery stores, we used to have clothing stores, we used to have pharmacies, doctors, and all of this is you know, it just disappearing. You know, little by little it's disappearing.
When I first remembered Acres Home, it was a very thriving community, self-contained community. We had all the services that community needed. We had plumbers, we had doctors, we had laundry service, bus service, grocery stores, restaurants. We had everything at Acres Home.
J. Leonard Smith once said, in Acres Homes, you could build a house piece by piece. You didn't have to have money. You worked in the daytime and build at night. They may have shacks, but we owned them, and we owned them without mortgages.
I'm proud of that because the people who did that were independent people of the neighborhood, and it gave them an opportunity to have something without having to have it needed here. That my mom and dad on the property where we lived on Little Yard, they had 3 different houses. You know, a small one in the front, a medium, and then a big white house in the back. And I'm sure Mr. Sampson probably moved some of those in there.
Mr. Sampson, he was a marvelous man. He moved houses with mules. He jacked the house up and put the house with a set of mules. It was great. It was great. Had a big family, and he was a true trooper. Say it that way.
Afforded to many blacks outside the Acres Homes community because of the strict building laws, low incomes, and the discrimination in the loan business. Often referred to as the sticks, the woods, and the country because of its rural agrarian lifestyle. They had no electric lights, no running water, and unpaved dirt roads, cows and horses. They were 100% self-reliant.
We were never hungry. My family believed in raising big gardens. They even had contests. All those brothers, they would come through with different things. I had an uncle that did purple. I think it was purple ochre. And that was fascinating. But you know, they raised their food. Daddy Arthur, who's Daddy Arthur, his name is Arthur Levinson. He raised hogs. We were never without meat. I always make a joke. We ate everything but the oink. It was just, and we shared. Now that was the big thing for us. We shared it. If other people didn't have it, we would give it to them.
Underwater. We had no lights, so we had no telephone. So if you can imagine that, it was very rural. But you know what? It seemed kind of normal at the time, even though we missed these services and worked hard, tried to get them.
Oh yes, plenty trails and trees. We walked everywhere. We walked food trails, around the trails, and down the so-called streets. And sometimes it might be so muddy your shoes would go in there. So most people usually walk barefooted.
Your house, doors open, windows up, and nobody was going to bother you.
I was safe. I used to walk from where we are now down to Little York, 1621 West Little York,
My bad. Yeah, I need better internet. That shit costs money that I don't got. Trying to work with what I got. But in time, I need to go ahead and upgrade. So, trying to do this shit. Bring it right back. Share screen. I think it got something to do with this music that's I got playing in the background, so I'm gonna turn this shit off. Fuck around, take it off. Give me a second. I'm gonna just take it off because I think that got something to do with it. You still can't see my nigga screen. Damn. You can't see it. Okay, you can see it. Boom. Let's see. My bad. Hopefully, without the music playing.
Position mainly was that the senior citizen in, so I was one of the main ones, so it was pushing the city to give us all the services that we needed, and that was a hard thing to do.
Those fights for advancement of their people wouldn't be for nothing. And in 1915, the White Oak Color School would be established by the Harris County Common School District number 26. In its establishment, it served 23 students, ranging from ages 8 to 21. The board, which was then composed entirely of Negro men, had arranged for the students to be housed in a small church building. They studied reading, writing, and simple arithmetic. But by the early 1930s, the school had advanced to teaching students up to the 7th grade. This caused the patrons to want and desire more. The White Oak School Board would go on to make a plea to the county, asking for relief for better educational facilities. As a result of that plea, the White Oak District would be annexed into the Aldine Independent District. The school would see lots of progress within the next 10 years. The training plan would include courses all the way up to the 9th grade. And in 1941, the school would hire Mr. A.B. Anderson, who would suggest the school to have a name change. They called it George Washington Carver School, in honor of the great Negro scientist. Mr. Anderson would go on to make many positive changes to the school, students, and the community. His great works would go on to earn him a recognition in the district, as they would name an elementary school in the community in his honor. Like Mr. Anderson, there would be several prominent figures in this community. By the 1950s, this Black community would continue to thrive despite segregation and Jim Crow laws. Negro Life magazine would describe Acres Homes as the largest Negro community in the United States. It was like many other suburbs that sprung up in the age of the automobile and transit era, except this community was Acres Homes, and its residents were all Black. Like many other self-reliant cities, Acres Homes would have its own business hub too. There were 2 main streets in the area: Yale Street Road, renamed West Montgomery, and Mill Route Road, renamed West Little Yard. They would own and operate the first Black-owned hardware store in Texas. In that store, the Smith family also operated a contract post office. It would be the first post office in Acres Homes. More residents would come to the community, migrating from other parts of the city, mainly the different wards. With more people coming from all over the city, those residents would need a form of transportation to maintain those jobs that weren't held in the community. Before the formation of the transit company, the residents would use the jitneys, small used taxis. driven by independent operators. The operators of the small taxis were usually residents of the community.
Anyway, jitneys were people from the neighborhood who would give you a ride, and you give them quarter or 50 cents or 40 cents, and you would go safely to wherever you were trying to go. That was the precursor, I think, for the cab stands that came on later. That was another. We had several of those in the neighborhood, and those were independent businesses run by my people.
But the jitneys weren't always reliable, and they were in open violation of the transportation codes. So even though lots of residents would use them, many relied on the Yale Street Transit. But when the Yale Street bus line terminated their rights in the community without warning, the leaders of the community were quick to precipitate an action plan to get the community moving again. The formation of a transit company in 1959 by the Harrison Elmores, who had also owned a dry goods store in the community, and several other leaders would once again make history. For the first time in the history of the southern United States, African Americans would own and operate a bus franchise, and it would be called the Acres Home Transit Company. The company would run up to 40 round trips daily from downtown Houston to Acres Homes.
Frank Maxey, his son is the minister at the church right over here on West Montgomery. Mr. Maxey drove for that company for many years. He was a member of this community. He and then a man named Mr. Berkeley Bolden, he was a bus driver for that company, and they, provided us service, hardworking, independent men who took care of their families and did something positive.
Because I was proud to be able to ride on that bus.
Some believe that integration will push us further and give us the same opportunities as others. But for many in this community that had thrived without it, the belief was that integration would be the cause of the end of this Black Mecca.
Ninth grade year, they bust us to Farmville, which was probably one of the most detrimental times of my life I can remember. Because one of the statements that Julius Hester made, the band teacher, and I will never forget that, is that we don't want y'all here and y'all don't want to be here. But it's the state law, so ain't nothing we can do about it.
Very fine without integration. But I guess might have did something great for us. I don't know. But to me, I'm not one to agree with.
And in 1964, George Sampson, a resident of the community, would do more than just talk about integration. The same man that had moved homes into this community with his moving company would make a move that would affect us till today. When he filed a lawsuit against Aldine Independent School District for racial discrimination against his two sons after he attempted to enroll them in an all-white Aldine high school. Sampson would go on to win the case, but the district wouldn't integrate until a year later.
It's a lawsuit for integration, right? So that why couldn't the kids out here attend the same Aldine high school that was in our district? And I know that the suit was won, and that a couple of years later, integration started. I think at first they sent out like a couple of Caucasian teachers to Carver High School. I remember that. One lady would drive all the way from Huntsville, Texas, and another lady came here. And those are the two teachers. And then for a couple of years, one of them left the students to Aldine, and they also took some of the teachers from Carver High School, and they went to Aldine.
And following integration, annexation wouldn't be too far behind. Longtime resident Beulah Shepard, also known as the mayor of Acres Homes, would devote 30 years of activism to this community, lobbying for better living conditions.
She did a lot working with our councilmen and working through the system, trying to get improvements. And she was one of our great, I'll say, civic workers.
The city would honor her hard work to the community by renaming the Acres Homes Library in her honor. By 1974, the entire community will become annexed. And just as quick as the whites were moving out of their neighborhoods, the blacks in Acres Homes were migrating elsewhere too. The community would keep afloat throughout the 70s, but the 80s, we will see a change that we all know and still recognize today. In the early 80s, a lot of soldiers began to return home from the Vietnam War, and they would not be the only ones migrating to the States. In 1975, Congress passes the Indochina Migration and Refugee Assistance Act, which allowed Vietnamese refugees to enter the United States under a special status and allocated $405 million in resettlement aid. By the early 80s, African American communities would get a knock on its door, and it was one that would change the dynamics of the community forever. But now, instead of the Harrison and Elmore dry goods and Hopkins grocery, there were Vietnamese-owned grocery and corner markets everywhere.
Landos.
And although their welcome may not have been a warm welcome into the community, eventually the Vietnamese families will become a part of the community and a part of the community's history. They are.
Man, we used to go to Carver Park on Sundays for a while. It rotated to Lincoln City Park, then it would rotate back and forth. I mean, it was just a nice gathering. Everybody out having a nice time, I mean, it had its ruckus go on with it, but man, it was a nice time in the community at that time. People was having fun, and it was most of just people being poor still having fun. That's that's kind of like the whole theme of it.
It's a tradition that Mayor Turner made sure he continued with his annual Family Day in the Park event. Each year, it gets bigger and better.
For Fun Day in the Park, it's one of my mom's favorite events because she goes out there and she get the line dancing. So it's cool to see all the, the older women out there getting it, and having fun and staying in shape. So that's my main thing that I like about Fun Day in the Park.
Young ladies sat in the shade enjoying their grandkids' play as they ate delicious sausage and turkey legs. The Carver Houston Ensemble Dance Team had everyone dancing in the park. The best part of it was that they were all dressed up in fantastic animal costumes. And of course, we could not help seeing people strutting their moves out there.
Today, Acres Homes is attempting to get back to its roots. It's a progress, but it's my hope that after this story is told, we will understand the history so that we can prepare for the future. Burns Barbecue, started in Acres Homes in 1988 by Roy Burns, has reopened and is now owned and operated by his sons and grandsons. Mills Dental, a Black-owned dentist from the community, has returned to offer the residents great and affordable dental work. Unicorn Academy, licensed in 1986 by the Wooten family, is still operating as a service to the community, caring for generations of kids. Pee-wee's Snack Shop is still holding on and he promised to provide the community with low prices while maintaining a good quality. Leonard's is still serving.
Leonard's actually closed. I used to stay by it.
Galilee Missionary Baptist Church is still providing fellowship 100 years later. Mayor Turner, a native resident of the community, is a living example of the greatness that was created right here in Acres Homes. He is the promise that anything is possible. And so many others have shown what being a product of this great community means. My name is Eulavia Dilworth, and this is a documentary about my community 100 years later.
100 years later, I still have pride.
100 years later, I still have pride. Acres Home Pride. 4-4.
100 years later, I still have pride.
100 years later, I still have pride.
I'm proud of you. Well met.
100 years later, I'll still have pride in Acres Home.
Look. You know what I'm saying? Like that little music they had playing in the background. So Boom. Hopefully this is it gone? Shepard's first exposure to politics as a volunteer with Lyndon B. Johnson in 1948. U.S. Senate Canada, studying candidates and their platforms, most significant working with Democrat cities, county, state, and national campaigns. For Shepard's first exposure to politics was as a volunteer and never missing the opportunity to vote for election. And in between rallies, she worked as a cook, waitress, maid, candidates and their platform. Most significant to working with many Democrat city, county, and state national, and never missing the opportunity to vote in an election. And in between rallies, she worked as a cook, waitress, maid, and furniture salesperson and spearhead countless voter registration drives. It's gonna play. She was born in Plain Dealings, Louisiana. She only received a formal education, largely self-taught. In 1948, she decided to leave Louisiana and help take care of her sister with a new baby who lived in Nacres home. That year, she largely self-taught. She succeeded in paying $150 for her first cold tag. She decided to leave Louisiana so that she could vote in her everlasting. You can read that. It's bullshit. Yeah. Come on, Mueller and Shepard. It was That's Just Burns Barbecue is talking about the boys who started it. Roy Burns started as the neighborhood pitmaster in 1973. He ran a successful, although only partially legal barbecue business out of the family home. The boys worked for their dad on the weekends and learned the craft. This was no small operation with a pit sitting in the driveway. The old man, who had maybe 5 or 6 barrel pits in the backyard, Gary Burns, said that in 1988 he moved the operation to the current site of the restaurant, but worked out of a truck, giving ribs, links, chicken, and brisket were on the menu. A building came soon after and grew slowly over time, and additions, enclosures, and improvements to the structure came only as the city inspectors mandated them. Crawford said every time the city came in and told him he had to upgrade, he added more on the building. Roy Burns built a brick pit behind the restaurant and closed it, and then tore it down in favor of a steel smoker. It was a barbecue joint with a life of its own. Today we have Uber, Lyft, taxis, but back in the day that you had jitneys. Jitneys were privately owned cars and that carried passengers over a regular route according to a flexible schedule. A way a fellow with an old Ford to make a few extra dollars by taking people to town faster and cheaper than cumbersome streetcars could manage. They only lasted for less than 10 years in the United States, but they became pivotal to everyday life for the Black man in the early 1900s. Not only was it convenient, but it was also a way to obtain autonomy financially. Houston City Council gradually abolished jitneys by 1923, between 1923 and 24, with 9 lines operating in the city and nearly 200 estimated drivers. It significantly reduced to nearly 300 nearly 300 in 1918. Of the 9, the San Felipe line was the one that catered to Black Houstonians whom white jitneys wouldn't let ride. This line's jitney, owned and operated by Black, were a part of the Black community, a business somewhat on the edge of respectability and only marginally profitable that provided a needed service. They didn't pay taxes and took an estimated $3 million worth of business away from the trolley lines annually. To be fair, there also were safety concerns because of the lack of regulations, as stated in the video. But I just thought I'd add that figure to, supplement that information, because I thought that was interesting when I came across that they was basically short-stopping the establishment, and it was hitting the boys $3 million to that, you know what I'm saying, to that effect. So that was an interesting historical fact. In 1891, electric streetcars hit Houston streets. By 1900, Houston Electric Company was running things on the already 5 miles of track. But these railways were littered with issues of traffic, narrow roads, and few bridges, making the environment perfect for jitneys. On page 118 of the Black Dixie, the reasons why jitney was embraced are elaborated on. Not only was the new mode of transportation cheap and convenient, but it also offered the means to protest the inequities of segregation on the streetcars, taxes, long-standing tradition of racial separation. Racial separation and mass transit began with the railroads. State law required separation in 1903, so this jitney concept was a way to fight against the oppression and racism. This is emphasized on 119 in this excerpt. Because of the deteriorating conditions within the Black political situation, there had been a shift in emphasis from agitation and politics to economic advancement, self-help, and racial, often coupled with a philosophy of accommodation, the development of transportation companies, therefore functioning 3 ways as a means of protesting against discrimination, as a fulfillment of the dream of creating substantial Negro business by an appeal to racial solidarity, and hopefully a practical solution, the transportation problem faced by the masses of boycotting Negroes. To offer additional context to the Acres Home documentary, statements on the Yale Street bus line and it just disappearing, this quote was, I think, helpful. Bus service in Acres Home until 1958 was provided by the white-owned Yale Street bus line. Black citizens were unhappy with the segregated terms of this service and decided to drive Larry Rush, the owner of the Yale Street line, out of the community. A group of citizens, mainly composed of ministers and educators of the growing Black middle class, formed an organization to find a public-owned transit system, the Acres Home Transit Company. According to Ward, J.C. Cole, a minister and subsequently the company's first president, was among those who organized a jitney service while the Yale Street was operating in Acres Home. The jitney essentially run the owners of the Yale Street West Line Company out of business. Basically, if you go back, so when they was taking money, $3 million, you know what I'm saying, from these lines, you get an idea of how that happens and the impact of jitneys on that market. So, like I say, it's an interesting fact that a jitney company is what basically formed and turned and got them some buses and pushed them out the way to when they created that company, the Acres Home Transit Company, which in the background you have the 44 bus that now actually runs that route. December 1958, the Yale Street stopped service in Acres Home. In early 1959, Acres Home Transit Company members petitioned the city for the franchise, but to their surprise, Larry Rush, the same guy who ran the Yale Street bus line, also applied to run a different franchise in the area. In the court hearing, Cole recalled the judge granting him and Rush a license to run the Acres Home route, the notion being, may the best man win. Cole says the bus company had a hard beginning. The company was ordered to run 5 buses on the downtown route every hour. This schedule would be a problem for the company because the buses they obtained were secondhand school buses purchased for $300 each. The court, however, allowed Rush to run the same route with only 1 bus and a flexible schedule. Dora Childress highlights in their dissertation titled Bus Ride to Liberation, a historical video documentary of Acres Home Transit Company in Houston, Texas. The company was developed during the height of the civil rights period. It served as an establishment of economic empowerment during the oppressive civil rights era. The paper further emphasized that the inequities experienced by Blacks, either being denied service altogether or being treated as second-class citizens. Sylvester Turner's story began in Acres Home community in Northwest Houston, where he was born and raised as one of 9 children in a modest 2-bedroom home. Sylvester's mother worked as a maid in an old Rice Hotel in Houston. His father worked as a painter for Continental Inns Co. and cut yards with his sons on the weekends to make extra money. Sylvester lost his father to cancer when he was 13 years old. While the help of his family, pastor, and teachers, Sylvester went on to attend the University of Houston with the help, of the family, pastors, and teachers. Sylvester went on to attend the University of Houston and Harvard Law School before joining the law firm of Fulbright and Jaworski. He later founded the Houston law firm Barnes & Turner in 1983 and 1988. Sylvester was elected to the Texas House of Representatives to serve the people of Houston, people of House District, 139 in Harris County. Excuse me. Elected in December 2015 and an overwhelming re-elected in December 2019, Sylvester Turner is serving the second 4-year term. He is Houston's 62nd mayor in his final year as Houston's top leader. Mayor Turner's theme is execution and implementation as he focuses on finishing major projects and initiatives. Since taking office, Mayor Turner has expertly managed the significant challenges facing the nation's 4th largest city, including budget deficits, homelessness, and natural disasters such as Hurricane Harvey. He is currently leading Houston's response to COVID-19 global pandemic. amid national unrest and calls for improving the community and police relations. The mayor signed an executive order restricting the use of force and created a task force on policing reforms.
I believe so. You know, might need to get into their trade school and figure that out, and that might be their best way to be successful in life. So, you know, we always been trying to get to the bottom of it, and this is definitely what we was trying to our vision. So. We teamed up with HBI, you know, and
come on, man. Basically, HBI.
And that's it. They came out with the vision. We did
can hear me trying to go to the he talking about how he they got the Boss Life Constructions and them boys work with HBI company off of the location is actually off of Little York and Antoine, and just moving on. It's just to show some community empowerment type stuff with the boys in the hood. You know what I'm saying? Most people moving out the hood. Slim building houses in the hood. He building live houses in the hood. You know what I'm saying? And like I say, just to move on. I don't know if that's gonna. Let me see if this works. Probably got too much going on. But if you can see, that is my daughter right there with a finger at, right in front of Slim Thug, and behind this person is that's Dee Dee, Delia Moore, Felicia Moore's oldest daughter.
Sure, the HBI.
And I think that's pretty much it, man. I gotta get ready to go. Oh yeah, hold on. I don't know if this is gonna play.
To serve a unifying symbol for the community. To tear down was unveiled.
Yeah, some flag was created to serve as a unifying symbol for the community. To tear down stronghold flag, vision, strongholds of division.
Community members
build a place of. That's it, man. Thank you, man. President passed, community leaders, Pump represents the well water, Horse represents the cowboys and trail riders, and many who just love horses, past leaders, present leaders, future leaders, the children. Red, black, and green term. Red represent blood, black represents the people, green represents the land. Boom. So, dog scared the shit out of me. But yeah, man. That's all I got for y'all, man. I gotta get ready to go to work. But yeah, the boy Slim Thug out there building buku houses in Acres Home, Scenic Wood, all over this, you know what I'm saying? And like I say, boys moving out, he coming in, you know what I'm saying? And he improving, because if you see some of these houses that boy building in these neighborhoods, just the houses that's being built in general, they are very, very nice compared to the ones that we see, the little shotgun houses that we've seen in the documentary and that are still littered all throughout Acres Home. Now you seeing, you know what I'm saying, looking like $1 million houses next to them. So it's almost like some, like they pushing people out, but you got people like Slim keeping people in. And you got, I think a company, JG something, that my aunt used, as well as my mother used, to get into houses. They trying to really advocate nothing but black people moving back in these houses, these new houses in Acres Home. But that's it. Appreciate y'all for putting up with my sorry internet and Ethernet issue, but that's all I got for y'all. And I'm gonna see if this thing works so I can get up out of here, because I got about 15 minutes before I got to go up in Little Caesars and get it in for a good 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours, you know what I'm saying? But let me see if I can find play y'all out on with the TEPS.
Claim your Africanness. I'm telling you, when you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back, and you're going to get your intelligence back. I'll guarantee you. Education. And when they take responsibility in terms of their own Africanness and their own identity, when they don't spend all of their lives trying to escape from their Africanness, when they don't believe that to be called African is a curse, you see, when they don't run from their Africanness, but they run to it, and they embrace it, and they become a part of it. Let's see what happens to their learning when they decide and say out loud that I'm black and I'm proud, and that I'm African and I'm proud.